All right, we're gonna get the meeting started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Andy, you want to do our roll call for us? Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Solicitor Court report ready to officer.
Right. All right. First application up here is application Z 2024-02. Martin Pal, care of Rotel Development. This is for 14 Phillips Lane. The applicant appellant is requesting the Newtown Township Zoning Hearing Board approve the settlement of Delaware County Appeals docketed as CV-2024-005188 and CV-2024-005636, arising from the Newtown Township Zoning Hearing Board's decision of May 16th, 2024. And I guess the files, and there's no file to have in order, right?
No
Just for a
files,
change
yes.
here, so we'll let you present what you're.
John is not right with Mark Powell, property owner. Lane, court granted a variance relief last April. Took an appeal to is our that property also filed an appeal. Can you turn your mic on?
Push the button.
Press the button.
The two neighbors on either side of the property also filed an appeal. Over the course of the last 11 long months, we have been trying to develop and finally have developed a settlement agreement by which a different location of the home would be installed. I think from the Zoning Hearing Board's perspective, the most significant thing is there was a condition imposed that required obtaining a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. I should inform the board that in order to apply for such a permit, the proposed land disturbance has to be at least an acre. We kept the land disturbance of less than an acre in the plan that was considered by this board, and the proposed new location that is preferred by the neighbors on either side likewise would not qualify for the submission of an application of a NIPD's permit. Our plan was to do as little tree removal and as little land disturbance as reasonably possible. If a NIPD's permit were to be required, and we did a sketch plan of that, and I've submitted that to the zoning officer, there would actually be an increase in the number of trees taken down, in the number of 8. And additionally, there would be a 20% increase in the amount of slope disturbance in the 25% or greater grade. So our proposed stipulation, which I've electronically submitted to the solicitor, and I'll provide a copy. I have multiple copies. I probably took down a tree, just made a copy. The settlement agreement, which we're proposing, would be approved by the board. Would approve the alternate location of the home. I guess it would modify certain conditions of zoning relief that were granted. One of them had to do with follow the suggestions of the township engineer. Township engineer issued a review letter before we came to the board and said add a swale on the Tomlinson side of the lot, which was added. But there may be other recommendations that are made by the township engineer. We will hear from him when a conditional use hearing is convened by the Board of Supervisors, and I'm sure that we'll be able to comply with any conditions that the township engineer recommends. The only other change in the conditions imposed by the board in your decision last May would be to recognize that the Newtown Township arborist has reviewed a landscaping plan and has determined that it is compliant with all of the regulations. There were some suggestions for the planting of a non-invasive species of vegetation in the riparian buffer area. That has been added. I should also inform you that the settlement agreement contemplates the recognition of 2 buffer areas on the left and right, if you will, as you come in off of Phillips Lane towards the house. That will be included as an exhibit in the proposed settlement agreement. There will be a declaration of covenants that will make the construction of the home compliant with the plans that have been submitted and are made an exhibit. There will be the placement of escrow funds held by, we now believe, the title company, but the identity of the escrow agent has not been firmed up, but the form of escrow agreement is attached to that, which I have provided to the board solicitor. So in summary, we hope that two pieces of litigation that are now pending in the Court of Common Pleas can be resolved so that there's a path forward to get additional zoning authorization as required to be issued by the Board of Supervisors when we have a hearing in about a week and a half. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So the board understands there's another step to this process, conditional use, that the supervisors will be, have to address at a certain time once these plans are put forth on a more permanent basis. So a lot of the conditions that we had placed into our decision are going to be addressed at that level. So my recommendation is, as long as all of the parties sign off on the agreement, my recommendation would be to concur with the agreement. And this will resolve both appeals that are pending at the common pleas level, Delaware County Courthouse, not here.
And my suggestion in terms of the mechanics of all this, it would be, I'm asking the zoning hearing board to authorize your solicitor to execute such documents as are necessary to resolve the litigation based on the terms that I have summarized and substantially as I've indicated in writing. And I can give you a copy, each of you, for if you're really interested in reading a declaration of covenants and an escrow agreement and a settlement agreement, and welcome to take a look at it, but it is just exactly what I've finished saying.
Okay. We'll make a motion to approve applications E2024-02 based on the settlement terms that all parties have agreed to. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
We
Good luck.
have the motion as well to authorize me to sign the document on behalf of the board, or.
Yeah, you want me to make a
President
motion
of the
to
board.
approve for Sam Manslander to, I guess, make the mo, or
To
to
sign on
sign
behalf,
on-
to execute the documents
execute
on
the
behalf of the
documents
zoning.
required? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I am going to go to one application that I'm going to bump ahead here because I know the next two are going to take a bit. So application Z 2025-12 for Kevin Knapp of 58 Mary Jane Lane. The applicant is seeking variance relief from section 172-103C, subsection 1 and 2 to allow for detached garage on the property. Applicant also requests relief from any other section of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premise is located in the R2 district. Now, you have, is that microphone lit up in green?
Is
now. And Andy, is the file in order?
It is in order. You'll see in a moment that photographs of the posting in the property. I think that's the wrong one.
Yeah, I went out of order, so go to
Yeah, we're
the,
out of order.
go to the very last application.
But you'll see the physical posting of the property. We also have a list of all of the property owners within 200-foot radius who received copy of notice. And we have proof of publication that this hearings, tonight's hearing was advertised in the local paper on 2 separate occasions.
All right. Sam,
Chairman, based on the representation of our zoning officer, I ask that the application accompanying documents and all exhibits presented at the time of application be marked as Township Exhibit number 1, that the list of residents within 200 feet who have been notified of tonight's hearing be marked as Township Exhibit number 2. Proofs of publication for advertising in the Delaware County Daily Times in 2 consecutive weeks be marked as Township Exhibit number 3. And the picture we've seen of the posting of the property notifying everyone of tonight's hearing be marked as Township Exhibit number 4.
all right, they are admitted. All right, and Knapp, the floor is yours. Just take us through what you're looking to do here, what you need relief for.
I'm just looking to put a prefabricated shed garage in the back lot or the backyard of the house, which is larger than what
Allowed.
the original zoning permit allowed.
So is that the only relief is just for the size because they're going over the 150 that's
Well, I
allowed?
think there's two, this is a corner property.
Yeah, so if it's
So
step back,
It's located
Oh,
in
where is
what we would define as the front yard along Mary Jane
okay,
Lane, as well as the size increase of about 30 square feet. Our code limits it to 150, and the proposed shed as shown is 180,
and it's just a
180 square feet.
storage shed, but you're just putting a
Yes.
garage door on it?
Yeah.
You're not planning to park cars in it or anything like
No,
that?
big,
It's not-
no, there will not be
Okay.
any driveway or pavement back to it. It's just for lawnmowers, storage,
Okay,
outdoor furniture.
and there's nobody on the side that you're going up against, right? So it's the wooded area that you're going up against there?
That's correct.
One of the exhibits that came with your application that we just looked at was dated March, timestamp with the township, March 18th. It appears it has the dimensions of the proposed building is 20 feet by 12 feet.
That's correct.
As opposed to another document that shows it 10 by 18. And so the question is, what are you, which size
The,
building are you seeking?
the 12
there?
by 20, the one in the back of the house, the one that's up there now.
Okay,
That first one I sent over, I had to,
Sorry?
the first one I sent over earlier, I had to revise.
okay.
And
Okay,
then I sent a second drawing corrected.
And I believe in the application it said it was an A-frame,
Yes, that's
so how high is?
off the top of my head, I don't know. I can bring that up. It's,
I think Andy has a
you know,
drawing too for the,
10 foot's the max.
you had the front,
10 foot's the max.
Pardon me?
By our code, 10 foot is
That's
the
why I'm
maximum
asking.
height.
That's what
I
I'm
don't, we could evaluate if you knew the roof pitch. If the walls are the walls typical 7 foot high in the shed?
yeah,
And if the
Yeah,
roof
just a
pitch
brief
is,
fab.
if it's 12 foot wide, gonna add another 4 foot.
How much?
So it's gonna be slightly over that 10 foot limitation, be 11 to 12 feet.
that looks like puff back on it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're drawing, how, are you encroaching, is he encroaching on the second front yard, Andy, is that what he's doing?
I'm
Is he,
sorry.
is he encroaching on the second front yard since it's a corner
Well,
property?
yeah, it would be located in the front yard.
So, is there a reason why he couldn't move it?
what,
It's-
that, unless I'm misunderstanding, that's in the back of my house.
Yeah, but you live in a corner, so you have two front yards.
Do I not have a
So
backyard?
this is different than the plan that I reviewed.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. And this, you're calling this a garage. So it does matter through our code as to what it's defined as. So is your testimony that it's a shed?
It's
or are
a
you
storage
using-
shed.
It's
What it's
storage
being
shed,
used, yes.
not a proposed garage. All right, so you did relocate it outside
To
the
the-
front yard.
Yes, the first one I'd sent up was next to that driveway, and then I realized that it had to be set back,
Okay,
so that was
so
moved
the
back.
shed size is still 150.
Well,
Based
what
in-
he's asking for, you're going with.
No, the
He's
shed
asking-
size allowed in the township in the zoning district is 150 square feet, and it's now changed from 180 to 240.
Okay.
So that's the difference, that you would be approving that increase. And then, of course, the height is not going to be limited to, but the code limits it to 10 feet. You would have to give him some kind of increase over that. Because if it's 12 foot wide and has a 412 roof pitch, it's going to add another 4 feet to the overall height, which would be greater than 10 feet.
The only two things he's looking for is the
Yeah.
size. and
So it would
pitch,
not be a front yard setback any longer.
No longer front
It
yard.
would only be size and height.
Okay.
Mr. Knapp, do you know roughly the height of it?
I thought it was in the proposal I'd sent. I don't- that might have
Where did
been-
you buy it from? You're building it or?
Stoltzfus Structures,
I'm sorry?
And then
Stoltzfus Structures.
You have it, did they give you a receipt? Might have it on there.
Oh, no, it's, yeah.
That was for the 180 square foot shed.
Based on your experience.
Yeah, I mean, no greater
No
than
greater.
12 feet, no greater than 12 feet in height. Measured to the peak of the roof.
Note that you're well, if we say that condition, you need to make sure that condition is met before he puts the thing
Yeah,
in your yard.
I understand.
Right.
I just, this drawing I'm bringing up on my phone doesn't have the,
Okay,
well, that I can find right this second.
But with that being the standard pitch, that's where they would get us to anyway with it.
Well, typically,
Yeah.
sheds are between a 4 and a 5 pitch. So if it's 12 foot wide, half the distance is 6 feet, 6 fours is 32, right?
We all just got a little smarter.
So
Very simple.
Property line.
Maybe not.
Apartment?
How far off the properties?
Any questions?
Well, it's 18. You're going to meet the 5 foot minimum setback from both the other adjacent property lines, correct?
Yes, I'm more than that actually, but yes.
Drawing that's incorrect shows it 20 feet off of the rear property line and
we don't know.
I don't know on the other side, it looks like probably about 10. Scale.
The back's probably close, but it's probably more than 10 on the side too. I just, after this drawing, found the property stakes.
What's the hardship?
Well, initially it was just hardship is the size of the sheds being small, I guess, right?
To the corner property. Up with something.
On this, what's that?
Good to make a motion.
If these guys have any questions, I know. You got it.
Question.
I know.
May have a difference of.
That happens once in a while.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, he's gotta come up. with something.
I'm trying to think of one.
I mean, he
Yeah.
has a reason, I know. 12 feet.
I mean, I'm just like spaces there. I mean, if it were somebody coming to us trying to put a garage that they're building out there, that they're only limited to 500 square feet or less than that, that'd still do.
What
But
about the height? That's gonna make it.
you know, if they're tucked up against the woods. I know why I wouldn't want to.
80.
I mean, I'm fine with it this way. We could vote and see. Plans, I'm fine with it if you don't.
Can you make it? Can you go back to your 180? You have to have it 240?
I need the room.
Hardship.
I have no storage on the property at all.
But you're asking for, what can he have, 180? What is it?
150.
150
What,
is the
so
minimum,
you're,
is the maximum.
Right, there's no garage now at the house.
There's nothing, no.
I mean, you're going above it a lot. We can give you some relief based on the hardship, You got it, me with a hardship. Not man-made.
What's not man-made? What?
In other words, I just need it, isn't a hardship.
Well, I mean, I have a half an acre to cut. I got a lot of lawn to take care of. I need something that's gonna fit a riding mower and my other equipment. And my outdoor furniture, tools, things of that nature. Just a storage, the room.
You gotta help us too.
Otherwise, all that stuff's sitting outside of his house. The neighbors don't want to look at that. There's no garage there. I get it. And 150, this is just my take on it. I know the ordinance. I think 150 is too small. This is the first time we've seen applications like this for a shed. Yeah, go for it.
All right, there's no more questions from the board? Good,
Nothing to say, Mike?
all right. I'll make a motion to approve application Z 2025-12, granting the variance,
I know.
relief for section 172-103C, 1 and 2, allowing for the, structure on the property with the condition that it does not exceed 240 square feet as listed in the drawing. And also with the condition that the height does not exceed 12 feet.
There was testimony that he wouldn't be using it for vehicles. Do you want that as a potential
Yes.
condition?
Yes, with the condition that it would not be used for vehicles as well.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries.
We
Three
just
approvals, right?
ask if there's any nays.
I just assumed they were. You were silent. Is there any nays?
I vote nay.
All right,
I vote nay also.
All right.
Be 3-2. Still win.
luck with your shed.
Thank you.
All right, next up is application Z 2024-25. Kevin Murphy, 366 Radford Court in Glen Mills, pertaining to the subject property at 307 First Avenue. The applicant is seeking variance relief from sections 172-29A to allow for a sober living facility. The applicant also requests relief from any other section of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premise is located in the R3 zoning district.
1 through 4 township. Wise.
And I guess the file, we don't, since it's continued from our last one, we know it's all in order there. And I know we have a few additional visitors, right? Because you're representing the homeowners, right?
Yes.
Mr. Squar, how are you?
Good evening. Very good. How are you?
Good. Okay, so we're,
Well, Mr. Hawley, have you rested your case? I know you had the last witness, I
Yes.
believe.
Officer, I did.
You've rested?
Yes, sir.
Then I think the township has an expert that they'd like to present, correct?
I do. Dr. Santoro,
So-
William Santoro,
So
if I may.
maybe in deference to his expert, we let township present their evidence first.
Yes, Mr. Matalowski. We're gonna go in this order.
Well, that's up to the chairman. I don't set the agenda.
I know there was another matter before you were, there was some discussion about them going before me.
what, another application or?
Yeah.
That's, it's fine. We'll get to this.
If at least Dr. Santoro up and down, and then we can always pause ours and do the other one if we have to.
Yeah, that's, I knew that you were trying to, you had a guest, so. Yeah, let's just get started.
Dr. Santoro, please, podium.
Yep.
Good evening, Dr. Santoro. Thanks for come here with us this evening. Could you please state your full name?
William Santoro.
Okay, and so members of the board, township intends to call Dr. William Santoro and offer him as an expert in addiction medicine and treatment. So we're just going to go over his qualifications. And then subject to any questions, we'll offer him as an expert and then ask him his opinions, okay?
We'll stipulate to his expertise.
Okay, thank you.
We can
So-
make the CV and exit.
I have that.
Yep, exhibit T5, any objection to T5?
No.
Okay, so T5, that's a copy of your resume or your CV, some people call it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that outlines all your qualifications,
It does.
and you're a medical doctor,
Yes.
and what's your primary practice?
Addiction medicine.
So by him stipulating to his qualifications, that kind of truncates this a little bit, so we don't have to go through all his
Yep.
training and experience. But
Made it
you're
as an
you're a
expert.
doctor practicing in addiction medicine.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any experience with sober houses?
Yes, I do.
And can you explain what that experience is?
As an addictionist, I end up referring a lot of patients to sober living houses. And I also sat on the board of directors of a local sober living house out near Reading for 3 years. I sit on the board of a recovery house, board of directors for 3 years.
And so the qualifications are stipulated too. He has the experience that he just outlined. It's on your CV. So I just want to make sure that he is admitted to provide expert testimony before you as an expert in the field of addiction medicine.
He's
He's
admitted as an expert then.
Thank you. Dr. Santoro, are you aware that this case involves a single house known as 307 First Ave here in Newtown Township?
Yes, I do.
And could you please explain what a sober house is and what its role is in the addiction recovery process?
A sober living house is a home where patients who are recently gone through something like a residential inpatient program for drug and alcohol, such as a detox/rehab. And upon leaving, they need to get assimilated back into the community and society. And this is a step in that direction.
And how does it work?
Well, you get residents that are all in the same situation. You generally, I've never seen one that was co-ed. They're always separated male, female. And they set up a program to foster further recovery. So there'll be meetings, there are house rules, simplest is no drugs or alcohol. But there are other rules, curfew, and the idea is to get the residents who are there to generally get back into society. So learning how to relive.
Now, for the program to work, is there just one person to a house, or is there a requirement that there be more than one person in a house?
By definition, you're going to need more than one person. You can't have peer support if you don't have a peer. So sober living houses work on a lot of peer support. So one will help the other. They've all been through the same thing, similar. They all have different stories, of course, and they're all individuals, but they've gone the same path. So they can each, now that they're in recovery, they can each help each other.
Now, I've advised you that this house at issue tonight is in a single-family residential zoning district known as R3, correct?
Correct.
And you're also aware that the township code defines single family as no more than 3 unrelated individuals living in the same house, correct?
That's correct.
So would that generally mean that some sort of accommodation would be required to the strict requirements of the zoning code to allow a sober house at this location?
Objection. Outside the scope of this witness's expertise.
Well, I mean, he's sat on the board of a sober house. He knows where they go.
I think he's
Sam.
probably qualified based on the CV I've reviewed. So I'll allow it.
Yes, by definition, you're not going to have three, you're gonna have, by definition, you're going to have more than three unrelated people in the home.
You need some sort of an accommodation to make this work in a
If
single
that's the
family.
rule, you're gonna need an accommodation.
So can you please explain to the zoning hearing board what factors they should consider and how to go about analyzing these factors to determine what a reasonable accommodation is to the zoning code to allow a sober house at this location?
I think the biggest things that you're gonna need to consider is the square footage of the home itself. To make sure that you've got enough square footage for people to live in the house as you would in a normal community. In other words, you don't want to put so many people in that it's like a circus or a clown car, that there's so many people there that nobody can really get along and live a normal life. On the other hand, you don't want to have so few people that there's only one or two, because you'll never get a therapeutic community if you've only got such a small number. So for my recommendations to any zoning board, I would tell you to look at the square footage of the house, look at what you're asking them to provide for living conditions. And that would include things such as parking spaces, bathrooms, bedrooms, common living areas. You're going to need more than just a bedroom. People come downstairs and want to watch television. The kitchen needs to be large enough to accommodate the people who are going to be in there to have meals. So I often tell people when I get asked these questions is to think of yourself moving in. The people who are moving into this house, they're people. They're just normal, everyday people with a medical disease. They're going to have the same problems that anybody else would have. If a family comes in, let's go to like a realtor. Family comes up to a realtor and says, I'm looking to buy a home. I've got myself, my wife, and 6 kids. They're going to look at a certain size house that's going to accommodate them. And they're not going to look at a 2-bedroom house, not with 2 parents and 6 kids. On the other hand, if you've got a husband and wife and 1 child, they may be looking at a 2-bedroom. They certainly don't need a 6-bedroom house. And those are the same logical things that I would recommend that a zoning board looks at to decide and determine how many people can fit in a house comfortably.
And if there is too many people in the house, does that impact that recovery process?
It's going to be detrimental to it. You're going to, no different than if you've got a family that's cramped into a small environment. You're just looking to have discourse. Again, these are people who are unrelated to each other. So it's one thing for you and your brother to get into an argument in a tight quarter. It's going to be another thing when you've got strangers there. So you're going to need to have enough room for people to comfortably live.
Now, you've read the testimony from the February 20th, 2025 hearing,
Yes, I did.
and you reviewed the plans of the house. With the plans are up on the board right now. You've
Yes.
reviewed those, the application and the photo where the posting occurred, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you reviewed that testimony, did you see the part of the testimony where I believe it said at the last hearing, there was at that time 13 residents in the house at that time? And at times it was up to 15 residents?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you seen any evidence to suggest that 13 to 15 people being allowed to live in this house is necessary to provide a reasonable accommodation for this facility?
You're going to need an accommodation to have 13 to 15. If I'm reading your question properly, I don't think, from what I saw, and I'm not a mechanical engineer, but from what I've seen of the plans and what I saw of the pictures, I think 13 to 15 would be very nice accommodations for the business bringing in the rent. But I cannot see how 13 to 15 people can comfortably live in a house such as this and be able to move forward in recovery.
So a reasonable accommodation, in your judgment, am I correct, would not include allowing 13 to 15 people living in this?
It would not.
Is there any necessity to having more than one person residing in a bedroom all of the time to make this program work?
No. The necessity is having more than one or two people in the house. If you can accommodate one in each bedroom and you had a house that had 7 bedrooms, you can have 7 people all in individual rooms. There's no reason that you have to have 2 people in a room. There's no reason that you can't have 2 people in a room if the room is big enough. But the way I said, you need more than one person in the house. I'm not saying you need more than one person per bedroom.
And that, in your professional opinion, what does the evidence dictate or demonstrate in this case as to what a reasonable accommodation would be for a house such as this to operate at this location?
Well, I'll almost object to the question because I'll tell you, I did not have to own up. I did not see the house. I did not walk through the house. So my estimate is based on the information that I see here and what I can figure out, not being a mechanical engineer. With that stipulation, I would tell you that somewhere between 7 to 9, whether you say 6 or 10, 7 to 9 people, I think, could comfortably live in a sober living house such as this. I think then you may need to, if you get into the higher numbers of even my estimate, I think that the zoning board should strongly consider limiting outside of the number of people, the number of cars that could be in that property, or finding some way to accommodate. I understand people coming into a sober living house, we want them to get a job. We want them to go off the house and go to work, which in some cases, public transportation can do. Other cases, I get it, they can't. So I think that you should look at being accommodating to make sure that they can get to work, because that's the goal of this. But on the other side, you need to accommodate the neighborhood, the town, the residents around them, to make sure that they are not infringing on their rights to have a car and be able to drive to their homes.
If conflicts arise, such as parking with the neighbors for a resident of a sober house, is that detrimental to the recovery process?
Doesn't have to be. I mean, we all live in neighborhoods and you may have a disagreement with your neighbor. That's actually part of life, and how you handle it is really whether it'll be detrimental or not. If you're parked in the wrong spot or you're blocking somebody in because you know this person has to get out and go to work, if you act like adults, which is what we want people to do, you can accommodate and make a resolution. If it becomes where somebody is just being vengeful and trying to be a pain to a neighbor or to the sober living residents, yeah, you can make conflict. But the whole point of a sober living house is to learn how to deal properly with normal conflict.
Now, the applicant has mentioned in his testimony that under the Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol Program guidelines, for things such as minimum square footage for bedrooms and maximum number of people per bathroom, that 15 is appropriate, an appropriate number of residents for this house. Are you familiar with those guidelines?
I am.
What are those guidelines? What is he referring to?
He's referring to the guidelines that list, and I've forgotten the name of it, the National NARR. I've forgotten the official names, NAR.
NAR.
Might be a second R afterwards. But these are people, this was an organization that set out a few years ago to standardize and license sober living homes, to give places like you guys a way to say, here's the standard, rather than each community trying to come up with their own standard. Now, the standards are, they list things such as square footage of a bedroom per person. And I believe it's 70 square feet per person if you've got more than two people in the room, or you'd have to look up the exact numbers. They're a minimum. I would tell you, it's not a hard and fast law. So I would tell you to actually go look at the place. And if they're 10 square feet short, but it looks reasonable, I'd recommend you give them the exception. On the other hand, if it's 10 feet greater than what it's supposed to be, but because of the design of the room, it's nobody'd want to be in here. You've got 10 square feet of dead space that really isn't living space, even though technically it is. I think you need to use common sense is what I'm basically saying. Use that as a guideline, their numbers. And it changes if you've got bunk beds. So they do give you some guidance to it. But I would tell you, on top of the guidance, use some common sense with it. Be reasonable on both sides.
Do these guidelines distinguish between residential properties in single-family districts or more institutional structures in non-residential type neighborhoods?
I don't believe they do. They just call them sober living houses. For instance, the sober living house that I sat on the board for was more institutional size. It looked more like a college dormitory. So obviously the bathrooms are different. You had rooms on either side, and then everybody came together into a communal bathroom. That's different, but they did not, the regulations, as far as I know, or I shouldn't call them regulations, the recommendations did not differentiate one from the other.
Do you hold all of the opinions that you set forth this evening to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
I do.
Thank you, Doctor. Subject to cross-examination.
Doctor, you've already told us that you have not been to the house, correct?
That is correct.
Have you even driven past it?
No, I tried to and got stuck in traffic and turned around and came back here,
So you've never even seen the outside of the structure, correct?
other than the pictures that were given.
Okay. So you saw photographic representations, but not a physical observation, correct?
Correct.
But you just told the board that it's important to look at it, correct?
Yes, and that's also
Okay.
what I told them earlier, that when I said I object to the own question, I have not seen this house. I have only seen the schematics and the pictures. And based on that, I said I would give an opinion with that in mind, of knowing full well that I did not walk through the house.
Would you agree with me that in each instance where we're talking about sober living houses in a community, in a zoning hearing board setting, that there are fact-specific components to an evaluation?
Yes, sir.
So each one can be different, correct?
Yes.
So it's done on a case-by-case basis, right?
It's done on a case-by-case basis, and I believe that's what I was trying to get across to these gentlemen, is that those are guidelines. I would follow the guidelines, but they're not hard and fast rules. Be reasonable on both sides, yes.
Okay, and that's what I thought you were saying, but I wanted to make sure of that. Now, you mentioned early on in your testimony, the factor of peer support. Would you agree with me that that is a critical factor in a recovery process?
Yes, it is.
And you're not a zoning expert, correct? You're a physician.
I am not a zoning expert.
So you can't speak to laws, ordinances, and things like that regarding density, correct?
No, and that is exactly why I was saying I defer to them. I'll give you the opinion from a medical perspective, but I can't tell you, say yes or no, or this number or that number. That's for these gentlemen to go and do their due diligence with all the facts in front of them.
I think I already know the answer to this one, but as a physician of significant number of years and experience.
Not that old.
I'm not suggesting you are, Doctor, but you have an impressive CV and you've been in this field for quite a period of time. You agree with me that addiction is a disease.
Absolutely.
It's an illness.
A medical disease.
Are you aware that this particular location has had a decade of success in terms of being a part of a recovery program?
Want to rephrase the question?
Are you aware that this location has operated for 10 years in a positive fashion?
I know they've been operating for 10 years. I was going to ask you to define the word success before the gentleman on the side objected, because success in my field is different than success, say, in oncology. Success in oncology is, did the cancer get completely wiped out? Success in this field is a little bit more squishy than that.
I guess I'd want you to define squishy, but I think
You
we all
define
know what you
success
mean.
and I'll define squishy. How about that?
Okay.
I said, if he defines success, I'll define squishy.
With regard to
that, Tom?
sober living houses, have you ever encountered neighbors who were adverse to sober living houses in their community?
Yes, I have.
And can you give me a sampling of what that type of adversity looks like, sounds like, whatever the case may be?
I want to be fair to both sides. I would tell you that oftentimes I get people who do not appreciate what you had said before, that this is a medical illness. And there is stigmatization around the disease of addiction. There's a lot of not in my backyard to things such as sober living houses, methadone treatment programs, even detox and rehabs. Some of it is justified when the residents at these places are not controlled properly by the facility, whether it be a detox rehab, methadone program, or a sober living house, doesn't matter. If the facility isn't controlling their population properly, other times it's not appropriate, where the residents and the patients in these programs and facilities are doing everything right, and the neighbors just don't like the fact that somebody is there who has a substance use disorder.
Now, you had stated in your direct testimony that you had read the transcript of the first part of this hearing, correct?
That is correct.
So you reviewed Mr. Murphy's testimony?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall him speaking to the history of this particular house?
Yes, I do.
And did you hear him speak about the rules of the house?
Yes, I did.
And were they consistent with what you, as a practicing physician in this field, would expect and want to see at a sober living house?
Yes, the rules were. The question, and I mean no disrespect to your client, what I would want to know is, are the rules being followed? There's one thing to have the rules, and it's another thing for the residents, and it's not always the facility, it's the residents need to follow those rules. The areas that I questioned as I was reading the testimony were actually things such as the success rate, implied quite a high success rate. And I'd want to know, I'll give you an obvious blatant, and I'm not saying your client was saying that, but I'll give you a blatant example of why I always question, what do you mean by success? I was involved in a case where the facility in their advertisements online boasted of a 95% success rate. And I questioned and I said, how do you define success? And their answer was, if they follow our rules, then they're successful. That makes sense. But rule number one was, don't use drugs. So anybody who used drugs did not count against their success rate because they didn't follow the rules. And if they don't follow the rules, they're excluded. And I looked and I said, well, then why isn't your success rate 100%? Because it's self-serving to say, you're successful as long as you follow our rules, and our rules are don't use drugs. And if you use drugs, we don't count you as a failure. We count you as not being part of our program. Another facility said that they considered success. This was not a sober living house. This was an inpatient detox rehab. And his definition of success to me was not using drugs or alcohol while they are in our program. I said, well, I might as well say prison then as a perfect treatment program because they're not using drugs. To me, I told them that I considered success, and everybody, as I said, has a different definition of success. So I'm getting into that squishy definition. My definition of success was 1 year clean and sober after they would leave the treatment facility. Now, they could be on medications, they could still get counseling, they could still go to AA meetings and NA meetings and go to a sober living house. All of that is perfectly reasonable. They don't have to divest themselves of everything of their treatment, but they just, to me, my definition of success was 1 year clean and sober after being discharged from the facility.
You never read or heard any testimony during the first part of this hearing as to the two examples that you illustrated just recently, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And I stated
I'm not
that
saying
before.
that you were being duplicitous in any way. Please don't think I am. But I want to confine our discussions, testimony, to this particular sober living house and what was testified to in terms of what they do there, how they do it, and what the results have been. And you saw that testimony, right?
Yes, I did.
And did you consider that testimony to be in large measure positive or negative?
I would have asked some different questions because as I was going through the testimony, I was saying to myself, yeah, but I'd like to know more information. For instance, this program, they would be there, if I remember correctly, was 4 months. Nobody gets cured of this disease and nobody gets cured in 4 months. Was that true, or did I didn't memorize the
There's
testimony,
no
so
specific length
please
of
feel
time
free
for the
to,
program.
I'm sorry. say
There's
it
no specific set or length of time for the program.
again.
So
Okay.
4 months, I would agree with you on that. I don't think 4 months is enough time to do anything.
I would agree with that as well. I would be asking, how long do these people stay? What is the average length of time that a person stays in the program? What is the follow-up after they leave the program so that we know, are they doing something? Is it accomplishing what we want them to accomplish? Is it reaching, and again, I stress this is my definition of success, but are they staying clean and sober for 1 year after they move on? Because if they stay in a program, in a sober living house for X period of time, whatever your average is, and then they leave, and you find that in 2 months, 80% of them are back using, I think, if you were the one who testified, you came across honest and compassionate, I think even you would say, if they left, and 2 months after they left our program, they were back using, you'd be saying, we're doing something wrong, we're missing something. So those are the kind of things that I wanted to know that I didn't get, positive or negative, in your testimony.
Would you say then, doctor, that the information that you received from reading the transcript of the first part of this hearing and thereafter what you may have examined with regard to this matter was less complete than you would like it to be?
For me, yes, I would have asked some other questions, but remember, you know, I hope it comes across that I am certainly not against sober living homes. I sat on a board of directors of one. I've defended others. I fully believe in sober living homes. The real question is, are they doing it right? Some of them don't, many of them do. And how many people are they serving? And I get it, that most of these are for profits. They have to, if they don't turn a profit, they can't continue to work. So I understand that. And that's where I say, you need to use common sense. You need to figure out what works for the sober living home to continue to be profitable. For the sober living home, though, they need to look and say, how many people can I serve before I start causing a detriment to the people I'm trying to serve? So there's your maximum and minimum that this board needs to figure out. I can't tell you that number.
So then again, your information base that you're drawing from is less complete than you would like it to be. Yes.
Not in terms of what I would need to do to answer the question of, do they have enough space to handle 15 people?
But you don't know that, do you?
Yes, I do. I did not look at the house visibly, but seeing from what I looked at on the pictures and even the testimony, as well as the diagrams, there's not enough square footage to take care of 15 people in that house.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, and quite frankly, his opinion.
Well,
His
opinion
testimony
doesn't
also
matter.
said that 15 people was more than could handle.
But-
So we both agree on that one.
And we also agree, you and I, that each instance is going to be fact specific and it's going to be case by case, right?
I could even stated that, absolutely.
I have no further questions.
Luca?
Dr. Santoro, I'm Robert DeLuca. How are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you.
I just want to reiterate what I believe from your testimony. These sober living houses are so that somebody can get back into society and be a good member of society.
That is correct.
And these people have a disease, so we want to help them to assimilate back with the rest of us and live a normal, healthy life, correct?
Well, that is the goal.
Okay. And then we talked about reasonable accommodation. What is reasonable for each particular situation, correct?
Yes,
And you are making opinions here today based upon looking at this residence and saying, well, how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, and how big is this place so that you could live like a normal family would live, correct?
correct.
Now, in your experience in this field, you testify regarding these matters, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you have these houses, they normally have, well, they should have somebody that runs the house, correct?
They do need to have somebody running the house.
A house manager, can we call them?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. And it's usual in these residential settings that the house manager has their own bedroom, correct?
Correct.
So now we have a 4-bedroom house, and you would agree with me that normally the house manager would have his own bedroom. And in this situation, there are 2 bathrooms in this entire house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the house manager's bedroom has a bathroom, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. So that leaves us 3 other bedrooms for these people to assimilate back into a family situation, correct?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought there were 5 bedrooms.
Okay, I'm sorry, 4 other bedrooms. And
The house
you've
manager
indicated,
would not have- I'm sorry, but they're speaking correctly.
you've indicated
in your testimony that you look at the size of the house. Yes? And you look at the number of bathrooms, correct?
Yes,
And you would agree with me that 15 people using 2 bathrooms, where one of them belongs to the house manager, is way out of line.
if the facts are in order, that the manager is taking one bathroom away and you're leaving 14 people with one other bathroom. I don't think that that's what this house was doing, frankly. But if that's the case, then you're right. Nobody should be having 14 people with one bathroom,
14 grown men, correct?
correct?
Okay.
With
Now,
one,
for
should
all
not-
this to work, whether you have your own family or this assimilated family, there's got to be rules, correct?
correct,
And rules of society, may I say, that you respect one another and you respect your neighbors, correct?
that's the whole plan of doing something with a sober living house.
So let me give you a hypothetical, because you only saw the testimony of the applicant in this matter, correct?
Correct,
Assuming that I'm a neighbor, I come home and my driveway is blocked because the residents of that house are blocking my driveway. Would that be enforcing the rules of that household?
I'd have to look at the rules of the household, but I would say if you're blocking your neighbor's driveway, never mind the rules of the household, the rules of society. If I block my neighbor's driveway, he's gonna come up and say, Dr. Santoro, you're blocking my driveway, I gotta get out. And I would say, I'm sorry, Bob, let me move my car. And if you resolve it in such a fashion, I don't have an issue with that.
Well, assuming that the neighbor has to ask you every day to move or often to move your car from the front of their driveway.
Objection, this is speculation.
I'm giving him a hypothetical.
Well, I don't know that it's a hypothetical that's based in fact. That's a hypothetical based on a generalization of some testimony.
It is at this point.
Well, can you be more in line with the testimony in your hypothetical?
I will be in line with the testimony that's going to be given. So that's why I'm giving him these hypotheticals, because he's going out of order and hasn't heard the testimony of the residents. So I believe in any medical, I can ask hypotheticals.
Well-
Whether the board says you didn't show the evidence to fulfill that hypothetical may be another issue.
Well, it's also has to be based on what's already in evidence. You're subjectively assuming what your clients are going to testify to.
Mr. Alexander, that's fine, but then I would ask that he remain here for the rest of the hearing and then bring him back. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. I don't think that's fair to Dr.
Well, I don't
Santoro.
think that's fair to the witness as well.
Yeah.
So we'll allow you to do it, but I
Okay.
think we can get through this portion of it without the hypotheticals if you can ask them the direct questions.
Yeah, well, I want to give him a few hypotheticals and then I'll move on.
Please know my continued objection.
Do you recall the question?
You'll have to repeat it,
Yeah.
sir.
Assuming that you're having to ask the resident on many occasions to move their car from the front of your driveway.
Again, I would say this is not a medical issue, this is a social issue. And again, if it was my neighbor, I would be coming up saying, Bob, you're blocking my driveway every other day or whatever number of days. Can't we figure out a timing so that I can get my car out and you can park your car? It's a question of just being civil to each other and coming up with the right solution to a problem that comes up, I'm sure, in many places that have nothing to do with a sober living home.
Now, assuming the fire trucks can't get down the street because you have so many residents in the house that they can't fit a truck down the street.
Then the township should be putting tickets on them, because I know that's, again, not medical, but I know if I'm blocking a fire lane, I'm gonna get a ticket.
So you would agree with me that there are rules that need to be followed by each of these households.
Absolutely.
And some of those rules, you don't operate one of these households without getting zoning approval. You don't operate it for 15 years and then decide to come in and get approved, correct?
I'm not a zoning officer. really don't know how that works. I don't know how they were operating for 10 years without being before this board. It's beyond my ability to answer that question.
But all of these things that you've discussed are based upon these houses following the rules.
Yes, sir.
So it's only as good as the person enforcing the rules within that household, correct?
No different than a father and mother enforcing the rules of their household.
And if they're not enforcing the rules, it then creates a problem, correct?
Correct.
In other words, you want these places to be a well-oiled machine.
I want them to be able to assimilate into the neighborhood. I want them to feel, I want the neighbors to feel comfortable that these people are next door and that they can rely on each other. I don't know if you noticed, I have a torn rotator cuff. I can't do certain things. My neighbor comes over and helps me. And he goes away for the winter and I look out for his house. So it's just being good neighbors. And that's all either side should be asking for. I have seen sober living houses where the residents of the sober living house have invited the neighbors over for barbecues and vice versa. That's the way it's supposed to be. I invite my neighbors over for a barbecue. There's no reason why they can't either. That's what we're trying to find and do with the sober living house, is to have them assimilate into society.
And if they're not assimilating in the society, then they're not doing their job.
Action needs to be taken. If they're not doing it right, this is no different than if the neighbor, again, I'm not accusing any neighbor of doing anything, but if a neighbor came over and painted graffiti on the sober living house and wrote things on there saying, bunch of addicts in here, I would be against the neighbors. Okay? And if the sober living house is standing there and throwing beer pong parties, I'd be against the sober living house. It's a matter of each person taking care of their neighbor and doing things properly.
And you also indicated that one person to a bedroom would be fine in running this house.
One person, well, what I was trying to say is that it doesn't have to be two people. You don't have to, I had said earlier in my testimony that you need more than one person in the house. You do. Do you need more than one person in a bedroom? No. Can you survive with one person in a bedroom as long as there are multiple bedrooms, so that you have multiple people in the house? Yes. Can you survive with two people in a bedroom? Sure. You can even have three if the bedroom is large enough. I have seen some statistics and some studies saying if you go above three people, no matter how big the bedroom is, it's not a good environment. Who wants to be sleeping in the bedroom with three other people in the room? So, you know, again, you need to think logically and remember that there are people just the same as everybody else.
But a reasonable accommodation would be one person to a bedroom as well.
Reasonable accommodation could be one person to a bedroom.
And in fact, you would agree with me that 15 people trying to even use 2 bathrooms in the morning is somewhat ridiculous.
It's a large number. I have to, since you brought it up, I have to say that the guidelines say 8 people to a bathroom is acceptable as a bare minimum. I tend to agree with you. I don't think I could share a bathroom with 4 people, but that's me. So where they came up with these guidelines, again, they're not rules. Remember, they are minimum rules. So in that case, this house does reach the minimum recommendation. That would be 7.5 people per bathroom.
And you would agree with me that it would be detrimental to their recovery if the rules aren't followed.
If the rules are not followed in general, it's going to be detrimental to the recovery.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any redirect, Rich?
I would just ask, any question that you were asked tonight change any of the opinions that you gave to me when I was asking?
No, if anything, they reinforced it.
Thank you. The board have any questions?
A couple of questions. Just to get the room count and bath counts. I think there's 3 baths, 3.5 baths. Is that correct?
2.5.
2.5 baths? Okay.
What have you seen? You know, we talk about the bedrooms and sleep arrangements for sober living houses that you've seen, is 2 people to a bedroom acceptable? I mean, I feel like talking about 5 rooms at minimum, if there's 15 people there, that there's gonna be 3 or 4 people, that just seems
Like I
me.
said, there have been studies saying 4 people in a bedroom. I don't know if that's in the regulation, but I have seen where 4 people in a bedroom is almost considered just by
Squishy.
having 4 detrimental. Even if the room is the size of this room, you don't have 4 people sleeping and
But
divided up.
But three's good. So in
3
essence,
can
if
be
they have
done.
5 bedrooms, and that would be 12 plus 1 be 13 people.
And that's why you said you guys need to look
Right.
at it and say, yes, this room meets the minimum regulation, but I don't think it's really big enough. Or someplace else where this room is 10 square feet short, but because of the way it's designed, it's okay. That's where you need to take some common sense. Remember, those are recommendations. And in order to get licensed, you have to meet those minimum requirements. This house is not licensed and it doesn't have to be licensed. But if they were going for a license, then they would have to meet those minimum requirements.
Is there a minimum requirement per person? In other words, like 200 feet per person, 100 feet per person? Is there some guidelines if they're going to issue licenses based on regulations? What is the square footage regulation per individual living condition? You know what I mean? In other words, if it's a 3,000 square foot house and it's 200 square foot per person, that's how many people can live there. Do they have that kind
I
of
don't
regulation?
believe that the licensing regulation goes to that level of saying the overall size of the house and divided by the number of people. I have seen in the regulations and for licensing, remember, I'm stressing, regulations for licensing, that's different than
I
a
understand.
rule. But I gave Mr. Sikora a copy of the regulations, and it does break it down to things such as if it's a single person in the room, it's a certain amount of square footage. I believe it was 70. If it's 2 people in the room, you need a minimum of 60. And please,
For each person.
for each person, which
So
makes it
that's kind of what
120.
I was asking, is there a number that if the house is X amount of square feet?
Not
and
based
there is
on-
none, But
Not
the
based-
bedrooms are.
Not
Bedrooms
based on
are.
overall house, it's
But
number
it's
of
based
people
on-
per bathroom, number of square foot per occupant.
So we know it's 8 people per bathroom. But technically, there could be 16 people as a maximum based on the bathrooms,
Based on the bathroom,
right? And
for licensing issues.
well,
licensing
we
issue.
have no other guidelines, so I'm kind of taking something that's, that there is, somebody has a number that they, in order, if he were to want to get licenses, these are the minimums he would have to
And
maintain.
none of which has to do with zoning, right?
Right, none of them has to do with zoning, but I think we're really, at least the way I'm looking at this case, is we're trying to decide if this house is big enough and how many people can live in it comfortably. It seems that's what's in question here.
That's the purpose of Dr.
Yes.
Santoro's testimony.
That's why I'm looking
I
for.
would,
I'm
I
looking
would,
for-
I would suggest that there's other factors when you come about residential zoning, such as the neighborhood, how it fits in, character of the neighborhood. and stuff
But it's
like
been
that.
here for 15 years. Or 10 years, however many years it's been here,
I don't know
so,
how long-
they may even predate current zoning ordinance, so they're kind of,
I don't believe
it
that's
might be a
correct.
legal non-conforming issue here
Okay.
as well.
I don't believe that's correct.
I don't know that.
Doctor, can I just ask you a few questions? You indicated a couple of times that you've read the transcript with regard to the type of residence in this facility, sober
sir.
house. Would you agree that the residents of this facility, as described in the testimony, would qualify as disabled individuals under the federal and state guidelines for a disability? Disabled. Under the definition under the American with Disabilities Act.
Yes, I have seen that people with substance use disorder have been listed as a disabled individuals.
Right. You're aware of case law on that subject that has in fact suggested that disabled people, as part of the recovery, is to be placed into residential settings to better accomplish their goals of sobriety?
Everything except that I'm not a lawyer. Everybody else in my family are, but I'm not.
Well, I didn't ask you
So
to
I
read
don't
the
know
case.
the cases. So
But as
if I
an
said, yes,
expert
I
in
know
the
case
field,
law, and you'd say, well, what
no,
case?
I'm
Well,
asking you as an
this
expert.
gentleman might ask, what case? And I don't
I'm not
know.
asking you for a case. I'm asking you as an expert in the field, if you're familiar with the qualifications
Yes,
for disability or addiction.
yes.
And there was some testimony that I recall from the last time that we were here, that not all of the 15 people or 13 people in this facility are in the house at the same time. They may be at the end of the day for sleeping purposes, but everybody's schedule seems to be different, that the living space accommodates whoever's in the house on a given day because people go to work. They go to other appointments, they have 12 steps and whatever other programs. That in any way impact your thoughts about the number of people in the house?
Yes and no. I mean, if you're telling me that you can be assured that 4 people are going to be on third shift and 3 people are going to be on second shift, but in the end, those who are on third shift are going to be home trying to sleep during first shift. So although they may not all be there at the exact same time, there are going to be times where there's overlapping. And again, that's where you gentlemen need to walk through the place, look at the facility and say, can we have 15 people coming and going, or is this going to look like Grand Central Station?
So you can't really opine because you don't know what those schedules are.
No, I don't know what the schedules are. And frankly, even if I drove by the house, like I tried to tonight, even if I had driven by the house, I wasn't going to have access to go into the house. I'm looking at this schematic. And I know after building my own office, what looks on here and then what's actual in reality, sizes are different. Mostly because I'm not a mechanical engineer. So when they says 11.5 by 10, you think that's large until you actually stand in the room and say, gee, it doesn't look as big as I thought it would be.
I know you were looking for some standards with regard to, and couldn't recall. I seem to recall that the Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol has a program of standards for sober houses specifically. Are you familiar with those standards?
Yes, aren't those,
That the
the Squar,
standards
is that
we're
the one
talking
that-
about?
those are the ones I had turned over?
I didn't know that they were identified as such.
They're based on the same standards that he articulated at the national level.
Okay, well, he didn't get there.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Are we,
Rich, anything else?
The
You rest?
only thing I would say, the only thing I have is, Mr. Redcheck did that inspection. The inspection report, I believe, is in evidence. No, I just want to make sure it is.
I don't believe it's been offered.
We have it.
Do you have it?
We have, I want to make sure it's in
You
evidence.
wanna
The
mark-
one that is T6.
T6? I don't have it, I should say.
I understand. I know it's on the website here, it's one of the attachments. And just make sure the schematic is entered in. All of this. I know. Call that T8 in case it's not.
T7?
T7, I'm sorry, T7. Move for admission of both. And I would note their inspection report noted 5 bedrooms, one of which had the proper access or egress, emergency purpose. So that's going to be used. Mission would be proper egress added to that.
Anyone have any objection to the offering of the evidence in the inspection report is T6 and T7?
No, sir.
They'll be omitted.
are we gonna switch?
Mr. DeLuca has present his case.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying too.
Oh, you want to switch over to next?
Just so we
page?
can get,
All right.
I know we
Allow
wanted to get the
Steve-
expert witness out of here and if we take a break here for a second on this one, then we can hear. Yeah,
Matlowski, you want to?
so we're gonna switch to application Z 2025-03 for the Springton Point Residents Association, HOA. The applicant is seeking variance relief from section 172-121A J to install 2 walls and pillars at the entrance of the development. The applicant also requests relief from any other section of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premise is located in the R1 district. And Andy, is the file in order for this, or this was,
I believe we introduced everything.
yeah, this was continued, I'm sorry.
This is continued matter.
All right. And yeah, if we, guys, we're able to quiet down just while we hear this application, please. All right,
Yep.
take it away.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Adam Matlowski. I believe I've been before you folks before, but I'm an attorney with offices here in Media. I'm here on behalf of Springton Point
Can you hold on
Resident
one second? I'm
Association.
sorry. I feel like, can we please, if you're gonna have conversations, he needs to be able to hear. If anyone's,
In the back, just go out in the vestibule.
thank you. Sorry to cut you off there.
No problem. The board may recall that this matter was before you, I believe, last month. The applicant is here requesting variances from section 172-121A through J with respect to signage at the Springton Point Resident Association entrance to the development. The request is for placement of 2 ground signs on either side of Springton Point Drive at its intersection with Gradyville Road. The ground signs are approximately 6 by 23. Is the wall that the signs on the sign itself is a little bit less than 6 by 16. They are illuminated by external lighting, landscaped and maintained by the association. These signs are on round monument walls, are proposed to be located on either side of Springton Point Drive at its intersection with Gradyville Road. Signs are for the purpose of identification of the development and our replacement of like signs that have been at the association entrance there since the inception of the development, which is 1988. The board will recall that this matter was before you last month and testimony was presented. And at the conclusion of the matter, you had raised some questions that we've been working on and come back and hope to present to you tonight. You were asking who owns the property where the signs will be placed. Will the signs be in the legal right of way? If they're a corner private property, have the owners given their permission by easement or letter? And will the signs be in the site triangle? Will they in any way do that? So we have some information for you. We have one witness tonight, which is Mr. Ashiban, who is the president of Springton Point Association. He will testify in support of the application and the exhibits, which are the packet that I just handed out to folks. And if I can have Mr. Bond sworn in, or maybe he already was?
Sworn in.
Okay.
BHAN. It's the last name, first name ASHEE.
Mr. Bond, can you state your name, address, and what your position is with the association?
Matlowski, one second. I believe your client wasn't here last month, so I don't know that he was sworn in last month.
He's just
Oh,
sworn in.
oh, I'm sorry.
There was some talk in the background.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Happy to do it again if need be.
Name, address.
Sure. It's Ashiban. I reside at 4 Springton Point Drive. I've been the president of the homeowners association called Springton Point Residents association for the last 10 years.
The association is seeking those entrance signs that I just spoke of, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And they're located, the signs are located on either side of Springton Point Drive where it intersects with Gradyville Road?
That's correct.
And that is at the Springton Point Drive is the entrance to your association?
That's
The
correct.
development?
That's correct.
How many homes are in the development?
We have 70 homes in the development, one way in, one way out.
These signs are replacement of existing entrance signs for the development that have been there since 1988?
That's correct.
Since March, have you engaged Chester Valley engineers to prepare a limited topographic survey?
We have.
The document that is in our packet, which is marked as A1, is that the plan that was commissioned by the association?
Yes, it is.
And sealed copies of those plans are submitted to the township with your permit applications, is that correct?
Yes, that's
All right.
correct.
And that plan shows the intersection, correct?
Yes, it does.
And it shows the location of the signs.
It does.
And I apologize that the signs are not colored here for you, but I think you folks can see that the signs in question are located to the west and to the east. Yeah, okay, and we'll testify more about those, obviously. This plan also shows the site triangle, is that correct?
Yes, it does.
And it shows the right-of-way lines for Springton Point Drive and the neighboring properties?
That's correct.
And am I correct that Springton Point Drive is a township dedicated road?
It is.
It's a public roadway and owned by the township of Newtown, right?
That's correct.
I'm going to ask you to turn to Exhibit A2. And is that a copy of the same plan, but with some color coding on there?
It is. Yes.
And the color coding was designed to highlight the site triangle?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's the blue?
That's correct.
And that shows where the existing Springton Point Drive onto Gradyville and is color coded to, it's also color coded to show the boundaries of the right of way. Is that right?
That's correct.
The blue highlight is the line of sight for the site triangle, right?
Yes.
Is your understanding that the plan shows that the signs are not within the clear distance site triangle?
That's my understanding. Yes.
And so you've been told that this establishes that the signs do not create an impediment to safe exiting from the property?
That's correct.
In other words, the signs do not interfere with the minimum distances that people need to be able to see traffic coming from either direction on Gradyville Road. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, with respect to the yellow highlighting, that indicates the boundaries of the actual right-of-way for Springton Point Drive. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so Springton Point Drive does not itself, the paved portion of the road does not fill out the entire right-of-way, right?
That's correct.
Okay. The yellow highlights show that right-of-way lines, right?
Yeah.
And on the outside of the right-of-way are located personal properties, right?
That's correct.
And the signs, the drawing does establish that the signs are within the right-of-way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Looking first to the sign that's on the eastern side of Springton Point Road, or Springton Point Drive, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Which is, if you're looking at the drawing to the right of Springton Point Drive. Am I correct that that sign is entirely within the township right of way
That's correct.
and does not encroach on the neighbor's property?
That's correct.
With respect to, well, get to that in a minute. Yeah, with respect to the one on the left or the western side of Springton Point Road, that sign is partially within the right of way, a little bit, right?
Yes, that's correct.
But for the most part is located on the property located to the west of Springton Point Drive.
That's 11 Springton Point. Yes,
Right.
that's correct.
Both of the,
Sleepy Hollow, 11 Sleepy Hollow Drive, excuse me.
both of the neighbors in question on either side are members of the association, right? They are houses within the development.
That's correct.
Now, when you were not at the last hearing, but another member of the association board was, correct?
That's right, our treasurer.
And
Yes.
it's your understanding that the zoning board wanted to understand exactly where they were located and whether you had permission of other parties.
That's right.
Right.
We had a general survey. This is kind of an as-built survey at this point.
Now, did you understand that, that my office has had conversations with the township solicitor regarding, permission from the township to locate within the right of way?
That's correct.
And is it, your? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I would just say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've approached the township and indicated what the issue was. And I've had my office had conversations with Mr. Squar, which the township, when he indicated that the township he believed that the township would not be opposed to this if we executed a right-of-way obstruction agreement. He's already provided us with a draft of that. We're reviewing that. He'll testify that we would certainly sign that. Now, understand that this does have to go before council for full approval, but Mr. Square told us, at least, that his preliminary discussions were that the township would be okay with this, provided we entered into that agreement. It's a right-of-way obstruction agreement that basically provides, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but would provide that, that of course the association would be responsible to maintain the signs, that the association would indemnify the township in the event that there were any accidents or anything that were caused by the signs or anything to that effect. And that if the township were to widen the road or at some point needed the right of way, that the association would remove the signs so that the township could do so. Is that a fair assessment?
It's very fair. Just to be clear, when we say right away, it's the part that the township has the rights to, but it's not in the cart path. It's off to the side. So there's no cars running at this part. But if for some reason we did need to widen the road or something like that, then they would agree that they would have to take it down.
If the board looks at Exhibit A2 there, you'll see that while the signs are located within the right of way, they are outside the paved portions of Springton Point Drive. So
Both of them, correct?
both of them, yeah.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the one on the western side is not even in the right of way very much, but we believe it's there a little bit. So, we'll cover the issue. Also, looking at, just for the board's edification, the board wanted to know a little bit more about the signs. The exhibits A3, A4, and A5, can you just tell the board what A3 is?
Sure.
Is that a
A3 is
rendering?
a rendering of the walls and sign that we're planning to construct.
And that would be from Gradyville Road looking on to?
Looking on Springton Point Drive.
Right. And then A4, what does that show?
A4 is just some of the dimensions of the sign. And, just to give you more color as to the size and dimensions of the sign.
And I previously stated that the wall on which the sign's located is approximately 6 feet tall.
That's correct.
And about 16 feet long.
That's
The sign's 16 feet long, but the wall itself is about 23 feet.
That's correct.
Just a quick question. When you're talking about the one that's de minimis, that doesn't include the columns are there, right? I mean, they would have to come off also. Correct? On the western one, the western side looks like the pier is there.
Yeah.
Is that day, is that from before? How is that being handled?
Already there previously.
Yeah, on the western side, that the block there shows that column, right?
Right.
The square. Yes, that's from the previous one. I believe that's staying because
Yes.
there's
Is that going to
electricity.
be included in the agreement
Oh, yeah.
for the township?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The agreement will cover all obstructions, and any improvements that are within the right of way, certainly. Where will we? A5 is just a more close-up picture of what the sign will look like, or drawing, I should say.
Yes, that's
A5.
correct. Yep, that's correct.
Now, we did show that the corner property at 11 Sleepy Hollow Road, which is on the western side of Springton Point Drive there. That the sign on that side is on that particular person's property, is that correct?
That's correct.
And we had discussions with, that's Leonis and Maradella Vicaris. I don't know if I'm saying their name
Dr.
correctly.
Bucaris.
Dr.
Yes, Dr.
Bucaris.
and, Yeah, Dr. and Maria Bucaris.
Bekeris.
Yeah.
Okay. And the sign's almost wholly on their property, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, we've had discussions with them and told them what's going on here?
Exactly, we have.
And,
Yes.
and that, by the way, the sign's been there for many, many years, but.
That's correct. Yes,
As far as you know, there was no formal easement or anything that existed previously, right?
that's correct.
In the packet, what is marked as Exhibit A6, is that a letter that we received from Dr. Bucaris?
It is.
And in that, did he indicate that he would, that they were giving permission for the association to do so?
Yes, they are.
And your understanding, though, that is we do need to formalize a more formal easement or right-of-way type agreement with them,
That's correct.
and the association will do so?
Absolutely.
And you would obviously agree to accept that as a condition of approval from the zoning hearing board?
Absolutely.
And with respect to the property at 9 Sleepy Hollow, which is on the opposite side, that is owned by the Stouts, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, none of the sign is actually on their property, is that correct?
That's correct.
But is your understanding that perhaps there's some electric or maybe that might touch their property?
That's correct. And given the board wanted their permission, we thought it was wise to seek their permission.
And so exhibit number A7, is that indicates, did we ask the Stouts for their permission and this is what was returned?
That's correct.
And again, if necessary to make a more formal agreement to be recorded or something, you're happy to do so?
I am.
And
Yes.
you would accept that as a condition of the approval?
Yes.
With that, I have no further questions and would ask if, without objection, if we could move our exhibits. At this point, I'll offer Mr.
They're admitted.
Bond for any questions board may have.
Well, question I have, and Sam, this might be to you, but also to you.
Yes, sir.
So understanding that the current residents have given written approval for the signage and or electric or facilities that are there, how does that transition to future residents? Is it not impactful unless they're building again?
It's gonna be recorded, right?
Okay.
And that would also have indemnities from the association to those property owners as well. Yeah, as well. Yeah, it's a two-way protection.
I think those are two primary conditions that we were concerned with, the board was concerned.
You good with everything, Andy?
All
Any-
my questions.
So-
Before we make a motion, I'd just like to make a comment. I think that, I know it was unfortunate the continuance last time, but I think our experience today is much different than the last time. So I thank you for being prepared.
Really.
Sure thing.
They got the message. Yes, sir.
I'll comment, Ed, sometimes when you have volunteers working on these projects, you get what you pay for. I think sometimes.
Understood.
Yeah.
It's like Little League, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I say we grant, Springton Point I say we grant, Springton Point Residents Association, HOA, a variance from sections 172-12, 121A to J to install 2 walls and pillars at the entrances to the development with the stipulation that, they, get recorded, the easement
is to be recorded both with the township and whoever else needs to be, as well as the right-of-way agreement with the township, and an easement must be recorded with the owners of the property currently.
Anything else we have to get in there, Sam, that we're all the typical?
Just, if I may, Kevin, just to give some relevance here.
We were just about to approve it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we can, yeah, is there, well, hold on, well, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
I was just gonna say that the gentleman, those folks just moved in at times.
Okay.
So that's all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, so now we're back to application Z 2024-25. Thank you, everyone, for dealing with the change up there. No, I'll do that too. Yeah, I guess it's a good ball. Well,
Unless somebody here for it.
So. Actually, where were we? I guess were you? Okay, all right, Mr. DeLuca. Yeah, is this someone you're calling as a witness, or is this for public comment? Okay.
Is she one of your clients?
That's, no, that's fine. I get it. And just so everybody knows, it's public comment. This is not this person asking questions or anything. They're just making a comment. So I don't want this to become a debate. Let her or him say their piece, so. Just when you get to the podium, make sure the microphone's on, and we'll get you to state your name for the record and address. Nah, not for public.
Push it. It's green. Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm speaking for someone in the neighborhood. And I'm also speaking from someone who has a healthcare background as well.
We just need your,
Oh, sorry. Julia and 401 Second Avenue. Vaughn, B-A-H-N. B-A-H-N. 401 Second Avenue.
all right.
I'm speaking about like occurrences that have happened at my house. And it's nothing, I'm all for people who are going into a living like this. And I think there's definitely a space for people. Oh, sure. But I'm coming from someone in the neighborhood where, so I had a smell of smoke in my house and gas smell. And it took 15 minutes to have the fire truck was literally on First Avenue. And I called because it was taking a long time and I didn't know we were standing outside of our house. It was pouring rain. And then I saw them on First Avenue. They literally could not get to my house. And I talked to them afterwards. They tried to get down Malley Street and they couldn't get down because there was cars blocking it. And they were trying to go, I apologize, it's First Avenue. Yes, First Avenue. And they couldn't get through. So they literally had to go all the way around. It took them 15 minutes. They started knocking on doors to try to get people to move because there's not enough parking. And they finally got to my house. Thankfully, it was something on my stove and they were able to fix it. But my concern is if someone has a house fire, it's going to be very difficult if there's not ample parking for people. And if there's a large number of people living there, it's very difficult to find parking and parking that's going to be safe. And some of the streets are very narrow. And so when you're parking, it doesn't leave room for people who are living in the neighborhood. And also for if there is a safety concern with a fire or anything, how are they going to get through the neighborhood? And it took them, whenever they came to my house, it took them another 15 minutes to get out. And they had to like inch to get past all the cars because they couldn't get a hold of whoever's cars were on there. And and I know it was none of my neighbors who lived next door to me who was parked there. To be honest with you, I have no clue whose cars were there, but I know that I've seen people who were parking there that were on First. But in general, if it wasn't anybody there, if people are switching how they're parking because they don't have enough spots in front of their house because people are parking in front of their house. And like having them park on Media Line Road, it's very difficult to exit on Malley Street because you can't see Malley Street. Yeah. So you can't, when you're pulling out to get onto Media Line, a lot of times people do go fairly quick sometimes, and it's very difficult to see. I literally have to sometimes like look and make sure, okay, I don't see a car coming now. So then 5 seconds later, I know there's no car coming. So to me, it's a safe, there's been several accidents that have happened right at that intersection as well because of cars parking there and not having enough space and stuff. Also, I have seen in the last month or two, I have seen something that looked a little suspicious activity, and I'm not 100% sure if I know that the person lived there, but there was like a hood over someone's eyes. And to me, we live right by a high school. And so anyone can be coming and going with different backgrounds. And I know that there's a lot of really good people and really good things, but when people are coming and going into a house and the neighborhood doesn't know about them, or they're leaving 6 months, we don't know who the people are coming and going. And so if we see something like that in our neighborhood and just think, oh, okay, it must be someone from there, we could be missing stuff that's happening that could help the high school, or something that, because when I see someone outside of the high school, I just thought, oh, okay, it's probably someone in that house. I don't know the person. And so I didn't say anything, but then it dawned on me after that happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if that wasn't something and there's something is going on at the high school? And I just sort of I just didn't call the police because I didn't want to look like that, because I'm like, oh, they live there too. And so there could be something going on at the high school that that's not being addressed because all these people are coming and going and we have no clue who's coming and going. And to me, it's a little bit of a safety concern from parking. Also, my daughter got off the bus about in November, and she got off the bus and there was some sort of explosion that happened from that house. She saw the trees moving and saw the big explosion, and that's not my job to investigate it. So my daughter and all the other kids that were off the bus like really got startled and ran home because they heard this big noise and like the trees moving and everything. And so again, I don't know, but it was coming from that backyard. I did not go in the backyard because that's not my job to be doing something like that. But it's, and a lot of people in the neighborhood have had concerns, and they're not here because this is spring break. I was on spring break. I was away. I came just for this because to me, this is important. This is our community and this is our township. And I'm also coming here to advocate for the people who are actually in the house. I know that like I'm in the neighborhood, but to me, having 12 people, I'm a nurse practitioner. Having 12 people in a house like that, my heart goes out to them because these are people who are trying to start back from where they are and trying to succeed and have that support. This is what this is for them to have this support and for having people advocating for them and being there for them to see, hey, like if someone's like having a hard time and they might be slipping or something like that, for people to make them be accountable and to be there for them. And from what I've been hearing, it doesn't sound like things are being monitored. And to me, I feel like that's a disservice for the people who are spending money in this house and are really trying to start and get back to where they want to be. And if someone's not there to sort of help and to have them be accountable for things, like my heart goes out to them because they're really trying to start fresh and start new and to be back to where they want to be. And you have 12 guys in a house, 12 to 15 guys in a house. You have, no matter who it is, you have that many guys in a house and you have where they're having free time. Fact of the matter is sometimes guys, hey, yeah, we can do this. Let's have fun and do something like that. And it eggs people on and there's a little bit of like, oh yeah. And to me, like it can lead to things that like fire, like bonfires that are really big and large, or let's do explosives. And it's nothing about anybody, no matter who the person is living there. You put 12 guys together and they're going to be like, oh yeah. And they, it's just, they're having fun, and it's no harm being done, but it's just, to me, I'm like, that's not the setting for somebody who's trying to make way to improve and to get back into working, to get back doing things. It just, to me, it elicits an environment that might not be as beneficial to them. I know that whenever there was people who were living there and there was only about like 4, I don't know exactly the number. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, if you want me to repeat. But to me, when there's 4 guys, when there's 4 guys, they can be like, hey, listen, let's like come together, let's try to work together type of thing. But when you have that many people, it's just, it doesn't matter who it is. It's just not the kind of environment for someone trying to get started back up and to help advocate and elicit what's going to help them and have them flourish with that many people in a house. And also there's like tents outside. I don't know if people are living outside. There's there's been multiple where I see mattresses along the side because I don't know if people have come in to inspect or what, but it's just a little, didn't normally see that. And now it seems like things are sort of being switched because maybe it's on the radar type of thing. I just don't feel like it's an environment for people who are trying to start off and the monitoring that's being done to help them and to benefit them as well.
Thank you.
And also, I think a lot of people wanted to be here, but they couldn't because of spring break.
Okay.
So, and then it was Christmas last time, so it was like a week before Christmas. So I know a lot of other people want to be here and speak, but with the timing, it's been a little bit. All the other ones were canceled, the meetings that were during times that wasn't right before a holiday or at spring break, they were all canceled. So they were all ready to come, but they all got canceled. So okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
You called her.
Right over there. Start out with Patrick McDevitt.
He's one of your witnesses, he's one of your clients?
Yes.
Good evening. Pat, do you have a residence on First Avenue?
Yes, 304 First Avenue,
How long have you been in?
since I was born, 60 years.
You've heard Mr. Murphy testify here before this board.
Yes.
And in your experience, have the rules been followed as Mr. Murphy set forth here?
I would say no.
Tell the board why you do not believe the testimony that Mr. Murphy has given here today is accurate.
From the very beginning, back in June, I had a tenant there and I went to work on the property over the next 4 or 5 months. Initially, I asked one of the guys to move the car because I can't pull the car in my truck in the driveway without driving on my lawn. And I went over a little angry because I kind of heard what was going on over there from the other neighbors. And basically asked him to move the car. He was a little, I guess, taken aback. And I said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm Pat McDevitt. I want to introduce myself and put my hand out to shake his hand. And he said, I said, what's your name? He said, I'm not telling you my name and I'm not shaking your hand. But from the beginning, that's not really, to me, being a neighbor or a good neighbor or anything like that. I think it was Jesse, it was the guy's name.
Is there a parking issue as a result of all the people in this?
100%. They park in front of Frank Ginter's driveway, which is next door. Frank Ginter, Ginter. He doesn't really want to get involved, unfortunately. And then, of course, there's a car in front of my driveway and then another car in front of the neighbor across the street.
Why is this street?
in that particular area too, my house is almost 100 years old. It's probably one of the narrowest parts of First Avenue because when they pave the road, it's literally probably 2 feet narrower than any street there. So, and I even had the driveway widened at one point so I could actually, when I did live there, to pull the truck in and out. But it's horrific there. There's a sign up that says no parking here at the corner. How about the whole darn street? And what keeps me from parking in front of my house and blocking the whole street entirely? It's ridiculous.
You heard Mr. Murphy testify about an incident regarding.
Correct.
You remember that?
Correct.
Were the facts as he's indicated, were they correct?
Not even, well, again, I asked them to move the car again. Traditionally, I pushed the snow out of the driveway onto Mrs. D'Agostino's property, and she doesn't have a problem with that. And they finally came out, and then I said, I was hot. Unfortunately, I was extremely angry and said something. And the gentleman basically said, well, nothing has happened to your house since you've been working on it. And I took that as a threat, basically. Meaning, what did he basically mean by that? And then I went over and we literally got face to face. And then with that, we walked away and I called the police, which there was nothing they could do anyway then.
Is parking an issue on that street?
100%, more so now than ever.
And in terms of your experience with the residents, have you ever seen Mr. Murphy there?
So I've never met Mr. Murphy before in my life. And if he said that he did know about the instances, then why didn't he come over and say hello, or the house manager for that matter? Nobody, I was working off and on there for 4 months, for 12-hour days sometimes. And not one time did anybody come over and say hello or anything.
Is there a noise issue as well?
At times, yeah.
And in terms of fires, are there fires outside?
Constantly. And the one day it was horrific. I don't know what they were burning, probably plastic or something like that. And I still don't understand why. I don't know if they were burning trash or something.
Do you know whether the police have been called?
I've heard stories, yes, and myself included, called the police.
Is there anything else you want to tell this board regarding this house?
Yeah, it's more about the parking more than anything else. I couldn't imagine anybody living there with 15 people. I'm shocked by that. And if personally, it's a money grab. I mean, I'd like to get $800 per person. I rent the house out for $3,200 a month, and I have, just say, 4 people living there. Well, I mean, I'd like to make $12,000 a month too. If that's the case, I'll come for a variance and make my house a sober living house. But I won't, because it's not the right thing to do for the neighbors. And there's no parking. And I actually have parking in my house. I could put 5 cars or 8 cars in my driveway, but I choose not to.
You have a problem that these people are in recovery?
Not at all. I have 2 brothers who were both addicts and have passed away, unfortunately. No problem with that.
And is your issue with the way they fail to assimilate into the neighborhood?
100%. They're not good neighbors. They don't want to be friends. They don't want to come over and say hello or anything. And when you do ask people favors, they don't want to be bothered.
I have nothing further.
Mr. McDevitt, you don't live at 304 First Avenue.
No, I do
you?
not.
So on a weekly basis, how often are you physically there?
On a week, well, it depends when I'm working on the house.
Well, I'm asking you on a weekly basis. Let's take the month of March. How often were you there?
The month of March. Let's see.
Last month.
Oh, just this last month?
Yes, sir.
Not often. I just rented it. Trying to think of it. Just recently. Just rented it. Just recently we rented.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So did you ever actually live at 304?
Yes.
And how long ago was that?
2007 we moved. Yes.
And then when did you stop residing there?
2007.
Oh, so you left in 2000?
Correct.
Okay. So from 2007 until now, 2025, you haven't resided there, correct?
No.
And so you mentioned you heard this and from various people and things of that nature. But what you yourself actually observed with regard to this house and the people that are there is only what you've told us you yourself saw, correct?
From June, correct, till I rented it, yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
I do.
Just another one of your witnesses. Could you please identify them as they come up, that there are witnesses for you? Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Donna D'Agostino,
And what is your address?
103 Berman Street, also known as First Avenue with the township, on our deed. So I'm at the corner of First Avenue and Berman Street.
And where is this property in reference?
Just 2 houses down. The front of my house faces Berman Street. So when we're out on our deck, we can see 307. So there's 1 house between us and that house.
Donna, can you tell the board about the parking seat?
Yes, the parking before we even started, before we even knew it was a sober house back in 2014, a realtor had told us there was a sober house there. At the time, whoever, Mr. Sutton maybe it was, leased to a company called Our House Recovery, which was out of Florida. I'm not sure when it transferred over to what it is. So I know it's not licensed or certified and doesn't have to be in Pennsylvania. But there's always been a ton of parking, and when we started to question, we found out it was a sober house, which I have no problem with. Alcoholism ran in my family, drugs, I've seen it all. So that's not a problem. But what we do find at times is that the cars, in fact, my husband fought to get a sign, the no parking sign originally, because they were parking all the way up towards the stop sign originally. So they did put a sign within the footage required for a stop sign. But if there's snow and stuff, like when we first moved, I've been living there for 35 years, and you couldn't even park on the street back then, but because they're narrow, if there's snow, the plows can't get by. So I don't know what the rules are now with that.
Have you had experience with this particular?
We have a couple times. We know that some of the people don't stay. Sometimes they're there a couple months and they leave. We have sometimes seen alcohol on the property. We found empty beer cans. Unfortunately, before this all came up, I wouldn't have thought of taking a picture of it, but the bonfires are always, I don't know my deck is high, but I can't see over that fence to their backyard. I saw there was a tent back there for a while. But the fires, I don't know if it was an open one. I don't know now if it's a screened one or not, but like March 29th, it was 82 degrees out and somebody was at that house blasting music, which is fine, it was daytime, but had a fire. So I called the fire department because I wanted to know if the township is allowing fires right now. And they said there's no restrictions. And I'm like, 2 degrees. So all the smoke was coming in my house, but things like that, not, verbally, no, I haven't.
How often fire?
Oh, frequently, at least once a week or more.
And are you able to see how many people are out there?
No, not all the time. Mm-mm.
Are vehicles able to get up the roadway when people are parked all over the place? Right.
Not all the time. It just, it varies. Sometimes they can and sometimes they can't, or they were blocking, they parked in the front of our house, actually. They started to do some parking there, but we did call the police about it. But again, the township doesn't have that rule anymore. So they basically said people can park, wherever they want, but.
And you have called the police on a number of occasions?
A couple times, yes.
No cross.
No questions.
No questions. It's not up to me.
Yes.
Ron Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, what's your address?
309 First Avenue,
And where is that to the referenced house in question?
right next door.
You heard Mr. Murphy testify that there are house rules that are followed. You ever testify to that? You were at the previous hearing?
Yes.
You agree to that?
Not at all. And
And why don't you agree with that?
because everything he said's not true.
I'll give us a
Um,
snippet.
there was parking problems, fires whenever they feel like it, M80s, quarter sticks. There's some ignorance from some of the guys, not all the guys, but there's some pretty bad things with some of the guys.
And can you give the board an example of what's going on?
Well, even with the fires, you know, my house was getting smoked out also. And, you know, I went over there and I said something to one of the guys. I said, you know, my house is getting smoked out. I said, who's in charge of the fires? He goes, well, we kind of all are. And I said, my house is getting smoked out. Is there something you can do? He goes, he didn't care. He's like, it's not my problem. So then I called the police.
How many people are there outside when these fires are going?
That depends. Sometimes there's just a few. Sometimes there's a lot. Years ago, there used to be tons of guys back there. You know, seemed like it used to get pretty rowdy.
And you heard testimony that there's 13 to 15 people living in that house. So there are other people that come to the house as well?
Yes.
And why don't you describe that for us?
Well, just recently they had a little party, you know, with the fires and the music blasting, which I don't really have a problem with. But you know, the music with the language and the music with being blasted, and there was little kids there. They had little kids there.
What do you mean by what type of music is it?
Stuff like "fuck you, I won't do what you told me," music like that.
And they're playing that at a high decibel?
Yeah,
You're able to hear that from your home next
I
door?
heard it down the street.
Do the residents give consideration to parking in front of your home?
It's better now, but I had, you know, they have a little cutout in the front of the house. And, I mean, before Newtown Square, there was no parking on the streets of Newtown Square. Somehow that got changed. So when they started parking up and down the street, the one car would be stuck it's kind of like on the grass. They have a dugout. And I guess he couldn't get out one day. They asked his friends to move, or the rest of one of the guys to move the car so we can get out. So they drove across my complete front yard and out my driveway. So, and you know, so I didn't know. It was just because it was snowing. So that's how I came home. I seen the tracks, and then I went over there and I asked, and nobody wanted to tell me anything. Everybody's like, I don't know. And then eventually one of the guy that did it did come over. And I mean, that was some years ago. That hasn't been done lately, but you know, there's the thing with the parking now. I don't have a problem with the parking anymore, but you know, they don't really park in front of my house. They park everywhere else.
Did you have a relation, did you know Mr. Murphy?
Yeah,
How long have you known Mr. Murphy?
probably since he was there at the beginning.
And how often is Mr. Murphy at?
I hardly ever see him.
How many times have you had to call the police?
I only called the police because my house was thinking with the smoke. So I think that was only once. And then my neighbor was having a problem across the streets. He called them.
Objection.
Can't say with some, did you see the police come to the house?
Oh, yeah.
And when was that?
It was several months ago.
Witness what was going on?
Oh, yeah. I
What was going on?
well, first of all, they're not just burning like a fire pit. It's not a fire pit. It's a bomb fire. And the wood that they were using, some of it wasn't even chopped up. They were throwing gigantic logs on there that weren't split yet. So that's why they were smoldering so bad. But I watched the guy, one of the guys went out there. I came home, the whole place smelled like gasoline. And because I'm a construction guy, so I'm thinking that like something spilled over in my house or something. So I went out back, I'm sitting under the gazebo, and I could the gas smell was bad. And one of the guys came out and lit it on fire. And it just went up really bad. And he was engulfed with the fire in the flame. So, but the trees are all right there. And it's like, they're gonna light the place on fire. That's my big beef with that. But there's M80s going off. Some of the guys are good and some of the guys are bad,
From what you see, is there someone there to make sure that this doesn't happen?
I don't really see that. I mean, once in a while, I would see somebody come. I mean, I've watched drug deals go down in front of the house. I've seen it. I know what a drug deal looks like. I saw it. I mean, that was years ago. That was a long time ago. But, and I tried. I might even came up to the station to try to talk to somebody. I might even call the cops that day. So it's probably on file. Like some of the guys, like I said, they're good. And then there's guys that are just, even Mr. Murphy here, he's not a nice guy. I've had some words with him, so if he's running the place, he's not that nice either.
We're not done, Mr. Meyer.
Okay, sorry.
You're employed, you said, as a construction guy. I think that was the term you used, right?
Yes,
So you go to work every day, right?
not every day.
Okay, on a Monday through Friday schedule, how often do you?
That
do work?
depends. I mean, some days I work full weeks, some days I don't.
You're not home 24/7 all the time, are you?
No.
Okay. So when you're not there, you don't have a way to determine what is or isn't going on at the house that's in question here, do you?
I've just seen things when I am home.
When you are home, but when you're not home, you don't know, do you?
No, I don't know.
And you mentioned that you saw a drug deal years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How many years ago?
Probably at least 10, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably on file.
Well, you said you didn't know if you called the police or not.
Well,
right?
I'm sure we can find out.
Well, sir, maybe we can, but I'm asking you what you recall. You said you saw a drug deal go down and you know what that looks like.
Mhm.
What did it look like?
Well, first of all, the car that came up wasn't anything that them guys would be driving. Okay, and it was a colored guy. Not to say that they don't have colored guys over there, but I watched the guy get in the car. I watched them exchange something, and I watched them get out.
You have any law enforcement training or experience?
A little bit.
And what does that consist of?
I'm not going to discuss it right now.
Well, sir, you made some statements about things. I would ask the solicitor to direct the witness to answer the question. Okay, we'll let it stand at that. No further questions.
Call Kenneth Ford.
I do.
Excuse
me, I do.
Correct.
Mr. Orr, how long have you been a township?
As of June, 61 years it'll be.
And where do you live?
315 First Avenue, 2 houses down from the residence that we're discussing.
Is that the house you grew up in?
No, his property. But the house that I'm in, present, is the house I grew up in, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize.
You indicated you wanted to testify here.
Yes.
Have you had any dealings with Mr. Murphy?
I have. Could I ask him a direct question? Would that be okay? No?
What have your dealings been like with Mr.
I can approximate how many years ago it was. And you might remember, he left a dog out. I believe it was, somebody gave him a dog, and it was probably the dead of the winter. It was snowing, sleeting. I'm an animal lover. I love dogs. And this dog cried and cried and cried. And you left the dog in the backyard. You remember the confrontation that we had?
Please don't address it.
I'm sorry.
Sir, what's the parking like on the street?
Terrible. When I leave my driveway in the morning, there's typically 3 cars. Pat was nice about it. There's 3 cars typically in front of the house that he resided in, that he rents now. And lots of times there's a masonry truck, you know what they are, right? Picking somebody up, which is fine. We all have to work. I understand it. There's been a couple of times where I had to beep, like, get over, because I leave early in the morning. And there's other times where I just get through the cars. They park on Berman. I've seen them park down on close to Second Avenue. Cars are an issue. Another issue I have that wasn't brought up were the firework displays. I mean, Penn's Landing fireworks. My mother's 91 years old, dude. So there was 10 guys there in the back of the house that night, and I came unglued, and it wasn't good. Several times.
You asked them to move their vehicles and stop with the fireworks?
In a not nice way, too, with the fireworks. But the vehicles, no, I've never addressed the vehicles.
How about the fires?
I actually had a nice discussion with him. Like he said, he had a barbecue. I don't know when it was, last weekend, a couple weekends or whatever. I'm a fire guy. And I said, barbecues are cool. And music, I don't have a problem with that either. I didn't particularly hear music that Ronnie heard, but I actually had a conversation with him. And, but when you're having fires, I worry about during the fall with the umbers, the umbers are gonna fall in the gutter and the house is gonna go up. That's the only issue I have. A normal fire is okay,
Do you have a problem with a reasonable amount of people living in that house?
I guess that's what I'm gonna say too. Addiction, I understand as well as Pat does too. So I have a brother who's sober 15 years, so I get it. I get drugs, alcohol. We need to limit the amount of people in the home. I think it's profit-based. I mean, let's be honest, so depending on what the township does, I think if it's limited, you're gonna clean shop and go, because you're not gonna profit from it, It's not fair. It's not fair to us.
Is there an issue, you completely addressed it, is there an issue driving up and down the street?
There is.
Vehicles there?
There is. No, it's tight.
I have nothing further than this.
No cross. Anyone from the board?
Please state your name for the record, please.
Gary Bernhard. Gary Bernhard. Bernhard.
Gary, what's your address?
305 Second Avenue.
And are you able to see this property from your house?
Yes.
And how are you able to see it? Where is your house in relation?
Kind of catty corner. I can see partially, I can see the house. But I drive through the neighborhood
or on my way out or on my way in, and I see the house.
You work? You work?
I do, every day.
So you leave and come home every day, correct?
Correct.
In terms of the fires, can you discuss that?
I've never seen the fires.
In terms of parking, can you discuss that?
Yeah, I look down the street because I have parking issues on our street. And I've been somewhat boisterous about it because there's times I can't get in and out of my driveway because people park right behind it. Sometimes they park in a way that cars can't get through. And the fact that I've had my own excavating business for over 21 years. I did predominantly site work, land development. These roads are only 20 foot wide. It's hard enough for 2 cars to go by. Today's developments, today's new construction, it's minimum 25 to 27 foot wide. These roads are undersized. They can't even, you know, if a car is parked on the public road, trash trucks have a difficult time, especially fire trucks, ambulances, or any emergency services would have a difficult time. And when I come in, either leave for work or come home, I look down that street because I just see the enormous amount of cars that are parked on this street between Berman and the next intersection. And I don't know how just the residents alone can get in and out of their driveways, let alone the rest of the residents being able to drive through or any emergency services can get through there.
Mr. Bernhardt, do you know for a fact who's operating the vehicles that you spoke about that congest the area in around your home and on First Avenue?
No,
You don't know who's driving those, do you?
no.
Thank you. No further questions.
There are other individuals. I'm going to call Cheryl McDevitt, but it'll be cumulative as to the parking. I won't.
No, sir.
All right, and the same as earlier when we do public comment, does everyone understand? It's public comment. We're not getting involved in arguments. You're not asking questions. You're making comments. Just state your name and address for the record.
Evening, gentlemen. My Kimberly Ricciardi. Kimberly. RICC IARDI. RICC IARDI. Okay. So I just, thank you for letting me speak. You seem like a really nice guy, and I'm very empathetic to your cause. I really am. I had a good friend of mine who got hooked on to heroin. He really drifted off course and just got hooked up with the wrong people, you know, and he made really bad choices, but he was a good friend, and it was really sad to see him go through that. And he was in a halfway house and he hated it. He was like, I hate this. It's just the worst experience of my life. He ended up dying of an overdose, and it's really sad. So I'm empathetic to, you know, your cause. I get it. And the people that live there, there's good apples and there's bad apples. Okay. So I get it. The problem is this has turned into something more than what it was originally intended to do. The whole purpose of a halfway house is to help people get back on their feet. How are people going to get back on their feet if they're crammed in 15 people there? It's counterproductive, right? So I mean, I'm just confused how the township didn't shut this down sooner, because if a regular business is out of code or they're not following the proper protocols, they can get shut down. So I am an expert in my field. I am an expert in reasonable accommodation. I'm a teacher. So I deal with people with disabilities all the time, children who have disabilities. So I know all about reasonable accommodation. I'm telling you right now that it is not reasonable to allow 15 people to cram into a house in a residential area. Reasonable accommodation would be building a ramp or maybe extending a doorway. It is not reasonable to ask for 15 people to be crammed into a house. Okay, now that, again, that doesn't mean I'm not empathetic to the cause, but that is not reasonable. So it's doing a disservice to the temporary residents there who do need help. It's almost selfish. It's selfish to the residents here, and it's also selfish to the temporary residents of the house because they are getting a disservice. They're not getting the care that they need if they're all crammed in to that one building. So that's one point. Again, I'm empathetic, I get it, but this is clearly about money. If we do the math, it's like $15,000. So I don't know if he's making more than all of you guys up here, but that's a lot of money. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that it's about money, okay? I'm shocked that 15 people is even being requested. That's absolutely absurd to me. Okay, so now I'm going to get to some of the things that I've witnessed. So I see cigarette butts being thrown all over my property. And if you drive by my house, you'll see I maintain it perfectly, and I always decorate, and I have so many flowers. And then I see all these cigarette butts thrown, and I'm just afraid one day that like a fire would get started. I've seen mattresses out front of the house recently when I went on a walk. So that tells me one of two things. Maybe he was cleaning the house. Okay, it could be that he's cleaning or that he's trying to hide something. So I don't know if was things getting cleared out to hide the fact that there was more than 15 people in there. I don't know, but I've witnessed that. I've witnessed tents in the backyard. Okay, gas being thrown in a fire pit with explosions, quarter sticks of dynamite going off, scaring children. There's been cursing at the neighbors, hit cars. As you heard, the people parking. So my personal experience is when I drive on Media Line Road, it's been better lately, but you look this way and you look that way, and there's all these cars parked there, that it is a hazard that, at any moment someone could get in a car accident because of all of the cars parking there. Another question is, how do we know that there's no registered sex offenders in there? This is very close to a high school. As a teacher and as a mom, I'm very concerned about that. I've also witnessed recently a guy who, walking from there, would go up to the high school and then he would just stand and stare at the high school. And that's kind of creepy. It's happened on more than one occasion. And another time, there was a guy in the high school, like hanging out there. I don't know if there was some kind of drug deal going on. I don't know, but he was in a position where he was out of the camera's view. So that's a little shady. So I don't know. How do we solve that problem? Do we have to, should I call the high school? Do I call the school board and let them know that there's a halfway house with guys going up and like kind of stalking out at the high school? Because that's not good. How do we know they're not doing drug deals up there, trying to sell drugs?
Neighborhood. Equal accommodation has. And the sex offender talk and really far afield from where this case is.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just worried because we don't know all the people coming in and out. Like, what if one of them was a sex offender? I have 2 young children, so that makes me very nervous, okay? This is a residential area, so if you want to have 15 people, again, I appreciate your cause, I get it. I'm sympathetic to it. But I think you should take it to a more industrialized, place, or maybe like on West Chester Pike where there's businesses. I just don't think it's fair to these neighbors because they didn't choose this. You know what I mean? So there comes to a point where you have to have empathy and compassion for them as well, in addition to the people that you're trying to serve. You have to have compassion for the people that live there because they didn't choose this. The poor people that live next to him, it's a mom and a dad with 2 little baby twins, and they just put their house up for sale because of this, because they've been begging for help and nobody's been helping them. So why aren't we accommodating them? It's not fair. It's really not. So, I mean, you got to do the right thing. Why don't you take the business and just move it somewhere where it's more reasonable? Because 15 people is not reasonable. Not reasonable accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, Gary Gordon, 305 Second Avenue. I was a public official, a director of public works, and my wife is works for a township as well. And I think what is and I don't have a problem, I really don't, with sober living. I've had a friend who worked for Dr. Gertrude A. Barber Institute. Dr. Gertrude A. Barber Institute. I know it's a long one. So when I had my business, I would perform some site work for these individual homes that they were integrating these mentally challenged individuals. So I get it. I understand. And I don't have a problem with it, but 15 people, now it becomes excessive. Now it becomes a burden on the residents, on us. And the fact that Mr. Murphy doesn't even know the rules of the township, he stands up here and doesn't even know the rules, the ordinances of the township, I think and they've been operating for 15 years without, the proper either permits or even considering knowing what the rules and regulations are of this township, which we all have to abide by, and he doesn't. And I get cited for a sump pump discharge. It's just, that's where common sense here has to come into play. And how the residents of this community, us, need to be more considered. I don't have a problem with sober living and that house, but it has to be reasonable. And somebody has to be there 24/7, because you can see it's not being, the rules and regulations or the rules there are not being followed. And that's what has to happen there. And if you have 15 people in there has to be a car. Let's say there's a car per person. That's 15 cars. Let's say there's one for half of the people. That's 7 cars.
I hope everyone knows we did get the message. I think the board does understand the concerns that are here, everything from the parking to, the accommodations and the fires and things. Your message is received. I promise you that. I wouldn't want to deal with it. I get it. And I think just want to make sure you know the message received. It's a problem. The parking is an issue. The amount of people that are there is an issue. The fires, setting off fireworks. And it's a shame because I feel like these are things that honestly probably should have been fixed a long time ago just by you in dealing with these concerns for parking. They seem like simple things to address that could make your neighbors happy. And this isn't something I typically do, but just hearing everything from the neighbors, it sounds horrible. I wouldn't want to put up with it, but the message is received.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And like I said, it's a community where these roads are
But
narrow.
but we have heard you, I promise, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that you've been heard. I promise. It's okay. We got the message. That was my point. Yeah. No, we are good. Yes, we're not gonna make any decision tonight. Our decision will be made at next month's meeting because we'll want to discuss how we want to handle this. But I appreciate everyone's time. I know this has been a long one with multiple meetings. So appreciate it. All right. All right. Meeting adjourned. Never mind. It's not adjourned, but I forgot it's a continuance. We just need to get. This is just to continue, Sam. This is just to continue till May. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you just need us to make a motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hey. Got everyone. We have one more application to deal with, so if everyone can step out.
Here's me.
Can everyone step out so we can do our next? Bigger
For
gap.
the record, Chairman, members of the board, I received a letter from the applicant's attorney. He has a new counsel, and it's done from Petrick and Wellman, D'Amico, Brown, and Petrosa's office. He is now representing Mark and David Gilbert with regard to the application that we heard, I believe 2 months ago. He is requesting, since his commencing representation, that the matter be continued to our May meeting, May 15th.
All right. I make a motion to approve a continuance, to continue the meeting to May 15th for applications E 2024-32. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any public comment? No? All right. Meeting adjourned.
Can you have to get a hold of
There we go.
Righty.
So bad. Poor Tom got this feet.
Yeah.
We're still having the meeting.
That's the whole new list.
Yeah. It's regular. I was gonna say, but
We actually tried to get that 59 very days ago on the 29th. Keep this thing free. Okay.
Right after you got.
That whole, it was funny because testimony came from Springton Pointe, right? But everything that he wrote on his application, everything he told us, initially, that take us by his built standard. Was wrong, completely wrong. And then he said,
And you're.
damn, I bite my tongue more than anything. I know. I heard this for
Years. Kidding me?
Hey, Tim. Oh, we just give you a shot. Test me. Hey, Tim.
Meeting's over.
Holy man, I wish I slept that good. I was sleeping that good at night.
Far around today.
Yeah, he said everything was good. I guess, yeah. Yeah, I can get you. Oh, I'm gonna tighten you up, I'm gonna give it that easy go, so it's so short, it's.
What is that?
It's gonna be to the minute. You and everybody else. Well, you
should see the parking lot you put on the left hand side of the building.
Oh, I tore down that bank, graded through steep slopes. There's some things that I just turned. There's other things I won't, but there's some things I just. That's right. I was, had your back. It was like when you shot a starting gun off, and she had to complete the race, but the race was how many words can I get in?
Finally got to the easy part.
Whoa.